let me ask you a question that might sound a little ridiculous at first.
All right, lay it on me.
So, if I gave you a choice between having an IQ of 160 and perfect knowledge of like complex financial formulas,
Uh-huh.
or having completely average intelligence but total absolute control over your emotional impulses, which one would you pick for building wealth?
Oh, well, if you watch CNBC or look at pop culture, you'd think the answer is obvious.
Right. You want the IQ, you want the quant in the expensive suit who can supposedly predict the future.
It's the standard image of success, isn't it? We treat finance like it's physics.
Yes.
We act like there are these immutable laws, and, if you just crunch the data hard enough, the money just pops out the other side.
But the source material we're covering today argues that this view is fundamentally totally wrong.
Completely wrong.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We're unpacking a fascinating breakdown of financial psychology. And the core thesis here basically says doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are and a whole lot to do with how you behave.
That is the big paradigm shift. You can be an absolute genius who loses it all because of a single moment of panic.
Yeah.
And, on the flip side, you can be an ordinary person who retires a multimillionaire simply because you understood patience. It takes finance from being a hard science into a soft skill.
Which is actually great news for me, because honestly, I was never great at calculus, but I like to think I can control my temper pretty well.
Well, hey, that might be worth way more than a calculus degree in the long run.
I certainly hope so. So, for everyone listening, here is the roadmap for this deep dive. We aren't just going to list off budgeting tips today.
Far from it.
We're going to explore the really strange paradox between getting rich and staying rich. We're going to talk about the invisible hand of luck.
Which is huge.
Right, and why Bill Gates is actually the perfect example of that. We'll look at the trap of never enough using a pretty tragic story involving a top guy at Goldman Sachs.
And we absolutely have to talk about the math of compounding. But, not the boring textbook version.
No, we're going to look at the Ice Age theory of growing money, which I loved.
Such a great analogy.
And finally, we'll discuss why you should save money for absolutely no reason at all. No goal, no vision board, just cash in the bank. So let's just get right into the first big concept, getting wealthy versus staying wealthy.
Let's do it.
Now, I'll admit, when I first read this section, I paused, because logically, these feel like the exact same skill set.
Right, you think so.
If I have the skills to, say, build $1 million business from scratch, doesn't that inherently imply I have the skills to maintain it? Why would those be different?
It's super counterintuitive. But think about the underlying personality traits required for each of those phases.
Okay.
To get wealthy, you need to be an optimist. You need to be a massive risk taker. You essentially have to look at a statistical improbability and say, I'm the exception.
You have to swing for the fences.
Exactly. You have to put yourself out there in a major way.
You almost have to be a little bit delusional just to start.
In a way, yes. But here's the massive problem. Staying wealthy requires the exact opposite personality.
The opposite.
It requires paranoia. It requires this survival mindset where you wake up every single day afraid that what you've built could just be taken away.
So you have to be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Sort of, yeah.
You have to be this reckless optimist on Monday to make the money and then a terrified pessimist on Tuesday to keep it.
That is the exact cognitive dissonance the source talks about.
Yeah.
And it's exactly why so few people can do both successfully. Making money is an action, but keeping it, that's a behavior.
The behavior.
Right. The source draws a really interesting historical comparison to bring this home. Think back to the Great Depression. You had guys like Jesse Livermore.
The famous stock trader, right?
Yeah, one of the greatest traders in history. In 1929, when literally everyone else was losing their shirts, Livermore shorted the market.
Wow.
He made the equivalent of something like $3 billion in a single day.
$3 billion in one day.
In one day. He was the king of the world. He had the getting wealthy part down to an absolute science.
But I'm guessing he didn't have the staying wealthy part down.
Not at all.
Huh.
Because he was wired for risk. He literally couldn't turn that part of his brain off.
He kept swinging.
He kept taking those massive, heavily leveraged swings, just filled with absolute confidence, until eventually he lost everything.
Man.
He died broke.
Mhm.
The exact skill that got him the money in the first place, that aggressive, fearless risk-taking, was the exact thing that killed him financially.
That is genuinely tragic, but it really highlights that survival itself is a distinct skill.
Yeah.
It's not just about pushing for growth, it's about not wiping out.
Survival is really the only thing that matters. Because if you can't survive the dips, you can't be around long enough for the good luck to actually find you.
The text mentions needing a barbell
All
personality.
right, a barbell personality,
Mm.
meaning you are heavily weighted on two opposite extremes. You need to be deeply optimistic about the future.
Believing that over 10 or 20 years, the market will go up, humanity will innovate.
Exactly.
Mm.
But on the other end of the barbell, you have to be completely paranoid about the short term, knowing that next Tuesday could bring a total disaster.
It's the whole idea of, I can survive anything in the short run, so I can stick around for the long run.
Precisely. And that brings us perfectly to the invisible forces that actually determine those long-term outcomes. We need to talk about luck and risk.
Oh, this is the part that hurts the ego a little bit.
It really does.
Because we absolutely love the self-made narrative. If I succeed, it's because of my grit, my early mornings.
Right, the whole hustle culture thing.
And if I fail, well, it's because the market was rigged or someone cheated me. But the source material hits really hard on the idea that we are often just leaves in the wind.
It completely challenges our fundamental attribution error. We look at a billionaire and we immediately ask, what daily habits did they have? What time did they wake up? What books did they read?
Well, we almost never ask what were the actual statistical odds of this happening in the first place.
Exactly. And the text uses the Bill Gates example, which is phenomenal.
I found that fascinating because I, like most people, always just assumed Bill Gates was a sheer genius who would have conquered the world no matter where he was born.
And to be fair, he is a genius. He's incredibly hardworking. But you have to consider the context,
The luck aspect.
the immense luck. Bill Gates went to Lakeside School in Seattle. Now, in 1968, this particular high school had a teletype computer.
Which was basically unheard of at the time, right?
It was unimaginably rare. Most major universities didn't even have a computer like that yet.
Wow.
So at age 13, Bill Gates had unlimited access to a machine that allowed him to learn programming in real time. The source actually breaks down the math on this, and it's staggering.
Let's hear the math, because this blew my mind.
Okay, so in 1968, there were roughly 303 million high school-age people in the entire world.
303 million.
Right. About 18 million of those lived in the U.S.
Okay, I'm narrowing it down.
About 270,000 lived in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 100,000 of those in the Seattle area.
And how many went to Lakeside?
Only about 300.
So he was 1 in a million. Literally.
It's literally 1 in a million. If he had gone to the public high school just a few miles down the street, there is no Microsoft.
It's wild to think about.
And Gates himself fully admits this. He has explicitly said, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Doesn't focusing heavily on luck make people feel passive?
How do you mean?
Well, if it's all just cosmic dice rolling, why should anyone listening bother working hard or studying late into the night?
That is the danger of taking the concept too far. The point the source is making isn't that effort doesn't matter. Obviously, Gates worked incredibly hard once he had the opportunity.
Right.
The real point is humility. It's understanding that because luck is such a massive, unmeasurable factor, you really shouldn't try to replicate someone else's specific path too closely.
Because you literally cannot replicate their luck.
Exactly. And crucially, you also have to respect the absolute flip side of the coin, which is risk.
Luck and risk are basically siblings. They are. They are both just the reality that outcomes are not 100% in your control. The world is too complex for that.
So sometimes things just go wrong.
The source makes a really profound point here. We need to judge ourselves and others with a little more grace.
I like that.
If someone fails or if a business goes under, it might not be because they were lazy or made stupid decisions. They might have just hit the risk side of the probability distribution.
That really changes how you look at heroes and failures in the business world. It flattens the curve a bit.
It definitely does.
But, there is another trap that catches people even when they do get lucky and they do work hard and they do succeed. The trap of enough.
Oh, this is arguably the hardest financial skill in the world.
It reminds me of the story the source tells about Rajat Gupta.
A perfect, heartbreaking example.
This guy was the CEO of McKinsey. He was on the board of directors at Goldman Sachs. He was personally worth around $100 million.
By any reasonable, rational standard on Earth, he had won the game of capitalism.
He had completely won. $100 million is generational wealth. He could have done absolutely anything he wanted for the rest of his life.
But he wanted to be a billionaire.
Right.
He ran in these elite circles with actual billionaires. And ironically, he felt poor compared to them.
The comparison trap.
So in 2008, right in the absolute middle of the financial crisis, He learned through his board position that Warren Buffett was about to invest $5 billion into Goldman Sachs.
Which was highly confidential, market-moving information.
Oh, completely confidential. So what does Gupta do? He hangs up the phone from the board meeting and he immediately calls a hedge fund manager friend to buy stock before the news goes public.
Insider trading?
Blatant insider trading.
Right.
And he went to federal prison for it. He completely destroyed his pristine reputation, his legacy, his freedom.
And for what?
Exactly. To turn $100 million into slightly more than $100 million.
That is the crucial question the text poses. Why risk what you already have and what you actually need for what you don't have and don't need? It just seems like sheer madness.
It is madness, but it's driven by what they call the treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill.
Right. If your expectations and your desires rise in exact tandem with your income, you will literally never feel wealthy. You will always feel like you're just one step behind.
It's social comparison. It's looking at the neighbor's new car and feeling inadequate.
It is. And the only way to actually win that game is to refuse to play it. You have to firmly define your goalpost and then rigorously stop moving it.
You have to be able to say, I have enough.
Because if you can't do that, no amount of luck and no amount of skill will ever save you. You will inevitably, eventually, take a reckless risk that wipes you out.
So defining enough isn't about giving up or settling for less. It's about capping your downside so you don't blow up your life.
Exactly. It's about protecting yourself from your own ego.
Okay, so if you can do that, if you can develop a survival mindset, respect luck and risk, and define enough, you unlock what is arguably the most powerful force in the financial universe. Compounding. We all know the basic concept, right? Interest, earning interest on top of interest. But I feel like human brains are just fundamentally broken when it comes to understanding the actual magnitude of it.
We are linear thinkers living in an exponential world. Our brains just don't map onto it correctly.
The source brings up Warren Buffett again here, but interestingly, not to talk about his brilliant stock picks.
No, to talk about his age.
Right.
This is genuinely my favorite statistic in this entire deep dive.
Let's hear it.
So Warren Buffett's net worth is roughly $84.5 billion.
Okay.
Of that $84.5 billion, $84.2 billion was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
That is absurd.
And it gets crazier.
Yeah.
Something like $81.5 billion of it came after he was old enough to qualify for Social Security.
That is absolutely wild. So if he had just been a normal guy and retired at age 60, he would have basically been a nobody in the financial world.
He would have just been a cute local anecdote in Omaha. The underlying reason he's the richest investor of our time isn't just that he's a remarkably good investor.
It's the time.
It's that he has been a remarkably good investor for 80 straight years.
It's the phrase, time in the market, not timing the market.
Exactly. Let's compare him to Jim Simons for a second.
The guy who runs Renaissance Technologies.
Right, the brilliant mathematician. His annual returns are something insane, like 66%.
Wow. And Buffett's are what?
Buffett's average is around 22%.
So Simons is doing 3 times better mathematically.
By the sheer percentages, Simons is miles ahead. He's arguably the greatest pure trader ever. But Buffett is exponentially wealthier.
Why?
Because Simons didn't really start compounding that money until he was 50 years old. He simply had less time.
Time is the exponent.
Yes. The real lesson of compounding is that a merely good return, sustained for a very long time, creates results that look indistinguishable from magic.
I love the analogy the source uses about the ice ages to explain this, because when I normally think of an ice age, I picture this catastrophic global blizzard that just buries the earth in a mile of snow overnight.
Right, like a Hollywood movie.
But that's not how it happens at all. Geologists found that ice ages don't actually start with unusually harsh winters. They start with unusually cool summers.
Cool summers.
Yes. A cool summer basically means that the snow from the previous winter doesn't entirely melt away. There is just a tiny thin layer left over.
And then the next winter comes.
Right, the next winter drops more snow on top of it, and then another cool summer keeps a little bit more of it from melting.
It just accumulates.
Layer by thin layer, and then that extra ice reflects more sunlight away from the Earth, which cools the planet even further, which creates even more snow.
And suddenly, thousands of years later, you're standing under a mile of solid ice.
That is true compounding.
You don't need a massive blizzard of 100% returns.
Yeah.
You don't need to miraculously find the next Amazon or the next Bitcoin at the exact right moment.
We just need a cool summer.
You just need to not touch the money. You need to let it sit there unmelted year after year decade after decade.
But of course, that brings us right back to human behavior. To actually get that exponential result, you have to be able to endure the sheer boredom of it.
Oh, it is incredibly boring.
You have to sit there and handle the flat line on the graph for 20 years before it finally shoots up into that hockey stick curve.
And you have to handle the terrifying volatility without panicking and selling.
Which leads us perfectly to the final and perhaps the most controversial point in the material.
Saving.
Say it.
Now, almost every financial advisor I've ever spoken to always asks the exact same question to start. What are you saving for?
Right. They want a specific goal.
A house down payment, a wedding, a boat, retirement. But this source comes out and says, stop doing that.
It says you should save for absolutely no reason at all. Which honestly sounds a little bit like hoarding. It sounds like my grandmother just stuffing cash under her mattress because she doesn't trust a local bank. Why on earth would I save money if I don't have a specific plan to spend it?
Because you're still thinking of money strictly as a tool to buy stuff. The text argues that the absolute highest value of money is not buying things. It's its ability to buy control.
Control over your own time.
Yes. The world is deeply unpredictable. We just established that with the whole luck and risk discussion.
Right.
If you only ever save for, say, a new car, and then suddenly you lose your job or there's a medical emergency, that car fund doesn't help you much if your mindset was rigidly tied to buying a vehicle.
But if you save just to have a general buffer,
Then you are buying optionality.
so it's essentially a hedge against the completely unknown.
It's more than a hedge. It is an active asset. Think about it this way. If you have zero savings and your boss starts yelling at you and treating you terribly, you just have to sit there and take it.
Because you have rent due on the 1st.
Exactly. You are trapped.
Yeah.
But if you have 2 full years of living expenses sitting in the bank and your boss yells at you,
You can politely tell him to take a hike.
you have the power. That feeling, that deep autonomy and freedom to walk away is worth infinitely more than a fancy car or a slightly bigger house. The source beautifully calls it the intangible dividend of money.
The intangible dividend, I love that. And that connects literally everything we've talked about today. The reason you save without a specific goal is to give yourself the staying power to let compounding actually work.
Yeah.
It's the buffer that stops you from being forced to interrupt the process.
It is the oxygen tank. You cannot dive deep without it.
Wow.
If you have no savings, you are physically forced to sell your stocks when the market crashes just to pay your electric bill. You interrupt the compounding, you melt the snow, you kill the ice age.
Saving gives you the flexibility to simply wait.
And in finance, the person who can wait the longest almost always wins.
This has been such a refreshing, totally different way to look at money. I mean, we just did a whole deep dive on finance and we didn't talk about a single specific stock pick.
Not one.
We didn't talk about interest rates or inflation or PE ratios.
Because we talked about human psychology.
We started with the radical idea that wealth is ultimately a behavior, not an IQ test.
Right.
We looked at the intense survival mindset needed to actually keep money once you get it. We humbled ourselves with the massive role of sheer luck and that incredible Bill Gates example.
We saw the absolute danger of constantly moving your goalposts with the Rajat Gupta story.
And we saw how the supposedly boring math of compounding relies entirely on the very exciting human ability to just be patient and to save for freedom rather than for things.
It really simplifies the entire mission. You don't actually need to be smarter than everyone else in the room. You just need to be more emotionally disciplined than everyone else.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave everyone listening with one final thought to mull over. We all spend so much time obsessively analyzing the market, watching the financial news, reading the daily charts, trying to predict the future.
I'll do it.
But based on everything we uncovered today, isn't that looking in completely the wrong direction?
I really think so. The market is, at its core, just a massive collection of everyday people behaving emotionally. If you truly want to outperform, don't look at the ticker tape. Look in the mirror.
Ooh, say more about that.
Well, the absolute biggest risk to your portfolio isn't a global recession or a bad earnings report.
It's you.
It's you. It's your deep desire to keep up with the Joneses. It's your blind panic when the line on the graph goes down. It's your extreme arrogance when the line goes up.
Yeah.
The conclusion from the text is incredibly empowering, honestly. If you can master your own psychology, the math basically just takes care of itself. Which means true financial success is actually accessible to anyone.
That is the perfect takeaway to end on. Stop studying the chart and start studying your own behavior. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down today.
Always a pleasure. I loved this one.
And to you, listening wherever you are, thanks for hanging out with us on this deep dive. Hopefully you're walking away today with a little more productive paranoia and a whole lot more patience. We'll catch you on the next one.